The fuck did you just say, Sal?
We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you voted for, who you worship, what you worship, who you love. If you want rule, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters.
Well, welcome to the Delusionals. I am Anthony Bosco. I'm with my co-host Sal Limo.
Hey,
Limo. And we are here to give you the hottest election takes you could possibly have. What else is there to talk about? Besides the Supreme Court hearings, but we're going to speak about that later. But Sal, your boy.
my boy Chomsky. Is this who we're talking about now?
Yeah, I mean, unless Amy Coney Barrett is your boy.
Nah.
I don't know that you ran in Indiana like that.
All right. So Chomsky's I don't want to say he's in the news, but Chomsky's was on the latest episode of Bad Faith. I haven't listened to it. It's not yet. It's a podcast with Briahna Joy Gray and Virgil, Texas, two people who I really respect and who I learned a lot from. I think Virgil is hilarious also. I don't really understand what's with this. I didn't read a lot of Chomsky's work, so I'm not gonna pretend. Like, I didn't read Manufacturing Consent. I have one of his books, but I finished it. But I didn't really get anything from it. There's probably some historical information that I glossed over that was important, but yeah, I mean, this isn't to undermine his contributions or his work or anything like that. I'm sure he's very significant, and whatever. But I don't get why they're having this conversation with him. So for those that don't know, basically, Bad Faith podcast, Virgil and Briahna Joy Gray invited him on to talk about the election, if I'm not mistaken. You actually listened to the episode, and I know you have thoughts on it. But if I'm not mistaken, it was more so a conversation on whether they should vote for Biden or Trump, right?
It was basically
not vote for Biden or Trump, but if they should. Sorry, you tell me what it was about because you watched the episode.
It was more of evaluating where we are on the left and how we should move during this election, and it's a general conversation about the ramification of the elections. But it really wasn't a conversation. It was more like She and Virgil were basically trying to bring up valid points against why it's completely dangerous to vote for Joe Biden, as we've been doing here on the Delusionals, and basically Noam saying tapping the vote Joe Biden sign, and by the end of it he was banging on the Joe Biden sign, because I feel like he just he repeated himself 20 times. If you literally listen to the podcast, I literally learned nothing new from three people that I admire and respect a lot. And that's really, it's an hour and 15-minute podcast. It took me 2 hours and 30 minutes. I kept on stopping and starting and texting you angry reactions, because it was really frustrating even to listen to. And if I was hot, they must have been incensed, how he's just completely pigeonholing them into you'd think that Joe Biden, a Joe Biden surrogate, was on a CNN Sunday morning show. It was that's a pretty good point. Well, I'm not going to address it because it may hurt my candidate. For the entire 53 minutes that he was on, he did not say anything negative about Joe Biden, which is hard to do, especially when him above all else have been warning us about the rot of the Democratic Party before anyone else, at least in my journey into leftism. So to not like I don't want to say that he may be paid off by the Joe Biden campaign, but it's really, really odd just to say that like considerations about climate change and how Joe Biden is stringently not going to move left towards it is suddenly used as like a political football, because since it's between a science denier and a guy who believes the science but won't do anything about it. So it's like, and finding different ways to ask him a question. It wasn't like they were like peppering him so they could like extract a certain reaction from him. It was more like a, yes, we know that everyone on the left is going to vote for Joe Biden, but we're saying that we are tired of having these, what do I call it?
Faustian bargains?
No. Suboptimal choices. There we go. These suboptimal choices as president, because it's like we're gonna have, hey, George Bush II, existential threat. The first, existential threat. Ronald Reagan, existential threat. And when you see the policies of Barack Obama and Bill Clinton continuing those policies of those existential threats, you run the risk of like never being heard. Like, why would, like, think about it. If I come to you as a person from the Sunrise Movement and actually have like legitimate concerns about like climate change and whether it's going to destroy the earth, if I say that I'm voting for Joe Biden after he says that he won't ban fracking and after he was part of the biggest administration for fracking, it kind of undermines what I'm telling to you. It's like, yeah, you're saying this, but you're doing that. And considering that voting is one of the biggest weapons that we have, again, completely undermines what you're saying.
I think for me, I what pissed me off the most about this was that I didn't really see. I didn't listen to the episode, but a lot of
you really don't need to.
Yeah, and I that's the thing. I know that I don't need to. The clips on
the not. No, even if you like made up your mind about the clips on Twitter, you really don't need to listen to the podcast. Like I'm not even like I don't want to denigrate like their hard work, but
right. And yeah,
I didn't have to give them $5. Like I gave them $5 for every episode, but that.
Yeah, precisely. I'm not trying to badmouth anyone really, but like the way that I like a lot of what I saw from Twitter about this was just like, all right, please, maybe I'm falling into the trap of being reactionary because I'm seeing stupid shit on Twitter, but I just like couldn't help but feel like it's completely misguided and counterproductive, but also just useless to ask Noam Chomsky what he thinks about the election. I mean, like a lot of what it came down to, like he said something about it takes 10 minutes to vote, which is not really the case for the people that depend on that vehicle the most. It doesn't take them 10 minutes to vote. It takes them hours. And they have right now in a pandemic, they have to risk, getting sick. They have to risk losing jobs.
What are you talking about, Sal? BuzzFeed told me that it's completely normal that black voters have to wait extra long.
Oh yeah, black voters, I think, they have to wait on average like 7 times longer than white people. But we saw with the Charles Booker and Amy McGrath, where there was one polling spot for like how many counties. And not to mention, we've seen videos of people banging on doors to let them in to fucking vote. Like that vehicle of voting, it's important. I don't really care to tell people how to vote, but like you can't talk about voting and you can't urge people to vote for one party without mentioning the horrific reality of voter suppression. And it's not just policy, it's infrastructure, it's so many other things. It's poverty, it's people, it's health. People don't have the insurance to fucking risk going outside and getting COVID and getting steroids like our president and going to a fucking rally the week after. But like, it's just, what annoyed me the most about the episode was, you know, I saw somebody, I think his name was Dante Atkinson or Dante Atkins, who said, I honestly thought it was like Virgil said something like we spoke to an anarchist and we had to put him in his place because old people and anarchists need to be reminded that their policies are stupid, which is really funny. But it's also like this dude retweeted it and was like, not sure if this is something you should be saying, and I was like, yeah, I could see like why that's, you know.
Yo, the reverence amongst liberals for like Noam Chomsky in the last 24 to 48 hours has just completely like it's triple.
Well, this same person wrote an article. It was Dante Atkins. He also wrote an article once called "Are They Addicted to Suicide Bombings?" And he's obviously
yes. Actually, the delusionals, our official answer to that question is yes.
So
whatever that brings, whatever that yes brings, I'll take it. Not so much that.
My point is, I think it's appropriately named bad faith because it's like there's no fucking point in having in the conversation, and it's like it's funny because the name of our show is The Delusionals, and it's to highlight people that are delusional for either their blind faith in politics or for their blind faith in thinking that change is possible, either or. So it's kind of ironic that I'm even saying something about that, but like he's supposed to be I don't know, but he's like considered an anarchist philosopher. I was like I was like digging through some things, and he's like an anti-communist leftist, which in that vein you have to ask yourself, like, how are you an anti-communist leftist? The usual answers are because you've been fed misinformation, because you see the crimes of Stalin and you think that it's like that's all communism is.
Not just Stalin, but Lenin too. He has a very short critique about that.
But it's what often doesn't get discussed is like it's a very weird line of morality to discuss because yes, crimes were committed, yes, people died, but a lot of the times when communist entities or states were being installed, they were fighting off foreign invasion and civil wars. So it's like it's not really something that you can't really comment on it without, knowing your shit.
That context.
You really need that context to really discuss it. And one of the most interesting thing that I thought is that I found out is Chomsky gets his money from like the military and Kodak, I believe. And he said some pretty like corporatist shit. He's like defends America a lot. He says America's like the greatest country. He says Trump is the worst person in the world. And he signed that letter with Barry Weiss on like the cancel culture shit. I think that's what it was. He was critical of Antifa. He said something about Antifa. If I'm not mistaken, he said something about the Black Lives Matter movement. Not the Black Lives Matter movement itself, but like that it wasn't productive or something like that. And it's a lot of these leftward punches that, I'm supposed to believe this person is an anarchist philosopher. And it's like, maybe he was, but my knowledge of him is what he's saying now as like a 90-year-old. And he's just like, the poor person only can vote. It takes 10 minutes. It's not a hard decision. It's like, bro, I don't need to hear him talk anymore. I really don't. Nobody else does. Who fucking cares? So that's what I got from it.
One of the points that he kept on raising is that the true purpose of the left is to create an activism that reverberates into electoral decisions, and that you could still vote for Biden, and that's inconsequential at all as long as you back it up with very high quality activism. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense because millions of people this summer, millions of people were out in the streets, whether they were
It also hasn't
unhappy.
stopped.
Yeah. So for the last like 6 months, the last like 5 months, people have been out in the streets every single day, whether they're once in one form or another, freaking showing contempt for their government. And Biden has explicitly said, I'm going to refund the police. I'm going to reinvigorate them. I'm going to not give you any socialized healthcare in the middle of a pandemic, even though there's 26 million people unemployed. I'm not going to legalize marijuana, even though 11 states are going to have it either legalize it for recreational or medicinal purposes. So it's like, we are doing the activism. If we do even more activism, it has to become violence, no? Like that. Yeah. What other recourse do we have? Like, and he also said, I think that shows his anarchist chops, I guess, or his anarcho views.
I mean, it doesn't in a way, because again, like he's said some corporatist shit all the time. I'm not going to say he is a corporatist, but I mean, he said some stupid shit. As I'm sure everyone does, but the Black Lives Matter movement to me was one of the more like, it's like a giant fucking neon sign in the middle of the night. I didn't understand why that was that discussed in the episode or no?
It was discussed, and he avoided the Briahna Joy Gray's point that this is the greatest time, this is the biggest activist movement since the late 60s, and nothing's happening. Nothing's being defunded. Mm-hmm. Everyone literally just took their tent and went home.
But that's kind of weird to me that the guy who wrote Manufactured Consent doesn't see that as a big warning, like a big red flag. He's also said that he would vote for Bloomberg, which is like, and the only reason for that was that he's not as bad as Trump. So my point is, like, are we going to keep asking people about voting when we know it's not good? Voting is fucking meaningless, especially at this point in time. As far as leftists are concerned, we lost the election when Bernie lost. So why the fuck have we been talking about the election for the past 7 months? Maybe even more.
Because we have to change how people view voting.
Right. Oh, I mean, in order to do that, you have to present a tangible alternative, which is why I don't fucking care to talk. No. So there's two things I want to say on what it would take for a feasible movement. Every Marxist movement that we've had in this country, which is not a lot. I think the IWW was like the closest thing to like a syndicalist movement, but most movements, communist movements that were internationally done, were done with violence. And that's not going to happen here. It's not.
Because we're simply outgunned.
We're outgunned. We're out. There's nothing. We will. Yeah, exactly. And I hate to be grim, but it's not going to happen, and not in the foreseeable future. So, with that said, voting is the closest thing that we have to, like, at least maybe we can get some policies in there. You know, it sucks, but the reality is, incremental change at this very moment it's not the most ideal thing, but it's the closest thing we have to power. What?
Are you saying that the incremental change of voting for Joe Biden is like the prescription to this? Or
no, that's not what I'm saying. Because it's not the prescription. Like I said, like, the prescription in all reality is a revolution of sorts. And, you know, the problem with the Black Lives Matter movement is that when was the last time we had a leftist or an uprising in this country?
Uprising?
Maybe the Woodstock.
Civil War?
Like, no. I'm saying, like...
Oh, you meant like a civil rights, non-violent type,
like a counter-power, counter-hegemonic kind of actual legitimate challenge to capitalism.
The late 60s.
And that was the civil rights movement?
Yeah.
But was that was a challenge to capitalism, but the leaders that were trying to challenge capitalism got assassinated, which
Oh yeah, I mean,
which like the American government was so effective at stomping that movement out that it also fragmented the movement and the message and like the slogans, even truth to power, like that doesn't mean what it's supposed to mean today. So my point is, with the Black Lives Matter movement in 2020, you see the ripples of that. So it is good because we are getting these small symbolic changes, but it's bad because again we're only getting these small symbolic changes. But also it
someone on
caused,
my fantasy team scored. Sorry.
I figured. So the issue with that is that the fragmentation, you have protesters tossing anarchists to police. You know what I mean? So you have this big movement, millions of people, but of those millions of people, how many have a mission? Or how many people are just there to scream and protest? You know what I'm trying to say? Like, there were people that went there like, okay, this is our chance to send a message and like challenge capitalism. And there were other people that were like, no, we're not here to do that. We're here to raise awareness. And you saw that when they were literally tossing anarchists to cops. And that's one example. And then a lot of the conversation was focused on rioting and looting. The real and we couldn't have a general.
That's mostly.
But we couldn't.
That's mostly on their. Sorry.
No. But we couldn't. What I'm trying to say is that we couldn't apply pressure in the way that we needed to because there is no cohesion in the left, and there's no cohesion amongst leftists and liberals, and there's a lot of reasons for that. We don't have as many unions as we used to, so there's not really an effective way to apply pressure to stop work, to anything like that. There's not really a reason for leaders to listen to, like, representatives to listen to constituents. And again, like, there's no rhetorical unity. So you have this very fragmented movement. And with that, you have now a lot of our discourse is focused on voting. And I personally think it's very misguided. I really do feel like the discourse should be spent on either unionizing and organizing or something else. If we're going to talk about voting, let's focus on Shahid Buttar and Nancy Pelosi. Why are we talking about Biden versus Trump? You cannot offer, at this point, leftists cannot offer anything to liberals or conservatives to give them a reason to not vote Biden or whatever the fuck the case is. So it's like, why even bother? Let's talk about Pelosi and Shahid. And if we're not going to talk about that, let's talk about getting prepared to challenge capitalism for real.
Even in the best of, like, even if we all coalesced and we're united, I still don't think we would, like, even make a dent, because everything. What I wanted them to ask them is about, like, how does money in politics play a role in Biden and Trump's, like, presidency? And once you say that, hey, like, say if like the AFL-CIO, the IWW, they all, like, broke bread and made a literally marched on Washington. Joe Biden on Inauguration Day, Joe Biden would literally just, like, walk into the White House and close the doors and say, "What now? You have no power." As far as unionizing, you still need, like, the interaction of the government to actually form a literal union. And considering that the Obama administration unionized less unions than the Bush administration, that's not even. I mean, I don't want to crap all over your idea, because I also have bad ideas about resuscitating the Green Party or third parties. None of us. It's like one day we're gonna have to look in the mirror and says that, like, we're completely lost and we need some event to basically destroy the whole apparatus so we could, like, take advantage.
I guess what I'm trying to say is the Black Lives Matter movement was that mirror. And in that mirror, we saw exactly what we're up against. And we saw how, I want to say how little we're unprepared, but also how different everyone views this.
But are we unprepared though? Like it was like it's not that bad to the point where it's like we don't have a list of demands. We do have a list of demands. It's just that no one did anything about it.
But that's what I'm trying to. I'm not saying that. I mean,
but there's nothing we could do but march and rally and occupy. There's nothing we could do. There's no like Joe Biden didn't meet with not one person who was at the Occupy City Hall thing.
But that's what I'm trying to say.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say though. Like that was the mirror moment, and I think it was successful in that to me it showed me what what needed to be worked on, and it showed me what's realistic in our current government and what's unrealistic. What it kind of for me was like, okay, this is my enemy now. I understand what I'm up against. You know what I'm trying to say? Mm-hmm. But what it should have showed a lot more people was this is where we stand right now. And
I get.
You know what I'm trying to say? And I don't think a lot of people had that reflection.
Not enough people.
Because we're continuing to talk about voting, and it's like, it does not fucking matter. It really does not matter. It doesn't matter if Trump wins. It doesn't matter if Biden wins. And you as a leftist cannot sit here and seriously try to talk a liberal out of voting for Biden, because it's like, no one fucking cares for the Green Party. I'm sorry. It's like let's face reality. They're not going to win. It doesn't matter if they do what changes. There's no reality where they get 60 million votes and beat Donald Trump. But like, it's just like, you can't sit here and have these conversations with these fucking deranged people that can only think in good and evil. You can't talk to them about, the cautions of voting for Biden, because they're going to tell you, okay, so what do I do? Vote Green Party? And then you can't offer a tangible alternative to that. So it's like, the conversation is useless from the get. So don't have it. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, but we need to explain the dangers of why voting for a Joe Biden is bad. Like, that actually is important to do, because we can't just, a person like, the reason why I'm not voting for Joe Biden is that a person cannot do that much evil to the country and ask for more power and get it, and then we're just not gonna have like a in-depth conversation about it. I refuse to let that happen. I don't care. I really don't care who I speak to, whether you're liberal or leftist or conservative, but it should be like it should be in the back of your mind that this guy voted for Glass-Steagall, the Patriot Act, the Iraq War, all these things. And I'm not going to let that go, because it's inevitable that he's going to win. And if we change, because the whole thing is that, well, if you vote third party or if you don't vote, that you are basically helping Trump and amplifying, and basically somehow you agree with it. You agree with him, even though they know that your politics is diametrically opposed to him. We should. I completely lost the point. Go ahead, Sal.
It's going to be a nightmare to edit.
Oh my God.
What do you mean you lost your point?
I lost the. I literally just lost. My mind focused on saying diametrically opposed correctly.
Oh my Lord!
The whole thing. I felt like I was on a heater too.
You were on a heater. I mean, the fact of the matter is that you can't
keep talking. I'll get back to it.
You can't expect people to have an understanding of the system the way that you and I do, the way that Briahna Joy Gray and Virgil Texas do. You can't expect a lot of people to have these understandings of the system. No, I understand, but I'm saying this is what effectively happens when you try to have that conversation about why voting for Joe Biden is bad. Because I agree with you. That I don't want him to be running for president, but like, I'm not going to sit here and try to talk to somebody about it, because it doesn't fucking matter. And it's like, it doesn't matter, because everyone is so engulfed in this anti-Trump fervor that that's what makes it impossible to have the conversation about. And in order to break that, you have to do so many it's so many months of education and shit that it's like there's no fucking point in even trying at this stage.
But if you speak to their material needs, as us leftists usually do, if you say, hey, this guy had an opportunity to get you something better than Obamacare, and he just simply didn't take it, that's one strike. You don't like the Iraq War. I don't like the Iraq War too. Why would you give someone who at the very least showed poor judgment in killing what, 500,000 people?
Because at the end of the day, they're still up against Trump, and that's all that they care about. You have to remember, like, these are people that spent how many years, the past 4 years, trying to, tweet, alert the media to every crime that this man has done or allegedly done. And
I know that obfuscates it like a lot.
That's why, like, my overall takeaway is that I don't care what Chomsky thinks about this election. I don't care what Chomsky thinks almost ever. I'm sorry, but like,
nah, don't say that.
I don't though. Like, that's the truth. I'm saying I'm not gonna look for what Chomsky thinks about current events. I mean, read a Chomsky book? Yeah, I'll read a Chomsky book, but I'm not gonna sit here and be like, I wonder what he thinks about the current situation. And I don't care. I don't. I
mean, like Christopher Hitchens, these people were once like very, very good thinkers about how the United States government runs and how our society runs. So it's not to say that we should not throw out everything they said, but we should definitely differentiate like when they've jumped the shark. And for a guy who's over 90 years old to say that he jumped the shark now, it's pretty pretty impressive.
It is impressive. That's what I'm trying to say though. And it's like, it's not even to be ageist. It's just like, leave him alone. He's tired, bro. He's like 90 something years old.
I mean, you can't have like if we had the opportunity to have Chomsky on, I'd have him on.
You could do that solo. You could do that solo because I would have nothing to say to him. I didn't read any Chomsky books. Like I've read Communist Manifesto and I'm reading, what else am I reading? I'm reading a bunch of other shit. But like, I've never read a Chomsky book. I didn't read Manufactured Consent. So I don't have that attachment to him. I don't really know a lot about him. And again,
indirectly, you've been influenced by him.
Right. And that I'm not trying to undermine that. The point that I'm trying to make is that I don't understand why this conversation, I'm glad I didn't listen to the episode, but it's also like, I just don't understand what we knew his stance before this episode, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So, and he's been making it clear for the past few years, like where he stands and what he thinks of politics and everything like that, and American politics. I would like to, what my overall point is with the scale of the Black Lives Matter movement and the lessons that we could have and should have learned, I think our energy is better spent, and I mean our as a movement, as a cohesive leftist movement, is better spent.
We are the heart of the movement.
I agree. But I think our energy is better spent on, feasible goals or at least productive conversations or like actual things that we should be doing. Why are we why do we keep talking about voting? People do not get it. They will not get it. If they did understand it, then Bernie would have won already. If they understood how important it was for someone like Joe Biden to not get a nomination, we wouldn't be here, but we are, and that's the reality. So why are we having this conversation in fucking October? It's like less than a month away until the elections. Like, what are you fucking hoping to change by then?
One, everyone's starved for content, even us. Even though every other episode where we don't have guests, we talk about electoral politics. Let's be honest there. Two, we need to change the eye level. Changing the eye level is important. It's the only, even though I know that in bad faith, no pun intended, that liberals started to like flash, like be like, hey, Chauncey said this, so you have to do it. Even like they just misunderstand us even from jump, because like we know that we don't bow down to any like hegemonic powers, even from our own like tent. Like,
But that's
as soon
also
as Bernie Sanders said vote Joe Biden, I was like, screw you. Okay, I'm not like you're doing with Chomsky. It's like I never have to listen to you ever again, because not that I don't respect you, it's just that for some reason you personally chose to not like empty the chamber on Joe Biden, and that's a very sad way to go out.
right.
Like, at least, I mean, for all the bad press that we're getting right now, as in the left, as saying like we're Antifa, we're this and that, we don't actually carry that dangerous threat to the establishment, and that was supposed to be embodied by Bernie Sanders, and it wasn't.
But that's my point, is that I wish that was being discussed more than, I just the boogeyman that is Trump is not possible to talk to a lot of liberals about, and especially in the current landscape where a lot of discourse is held on the fucking internet. It's already impossible to change someone's mind on the internet. It's so like why is this where a lot of this is happening? Like, it's not
as like I
obviously we're in a pandemic
think
now, so I get it, but
I saw some Pew Research, and they asked if they thought that Trump was a fascist or not, and 60% of the people said no. So this is a completely like online thing, or at least I think it's an online thing, that we're just like all of a sudden calling people fascists, when really, if we're going to do it in context, all that stuff that we're scared about right now, quote unquote, that we're supposed to be scared about, that shit sailed like 2004. Like, we're just the 2004 election, after the AUMF passed, after the Patriot Act passed. That's when we circle the wagons and say, hey, we have a problem here. And obviously that didn't work out since George Bush got his second term, and ever since then, I'd say the game was called back then, and we're just like, we've been living in denial since, and I guess we've been making like, that's why I told you, like, whatever we do, even if we got the best version of the left, like I'm talking about Black Panthers meets the MLK faction, like the best thing you've ever seen, like the best organization, that still wouldn't matter. Because in a capitalist system, when the government and corporations are so intertwined, that's the real game. Something's
right.
one has to do something to the other where they want to break apart. And I don't, seeing how it is between like the Koch brothers on one side, the Koch brothers and Sheldon Adelson on one side versus George Soros, I don't see that happening. So we say that to say this: we are completely owned. We are completely lost. Everyone needs to accept that and just act accordingly.
And that's where my frustration. That's where my frustration is, though, because that's what I think.
Or
no. I think these conversations about voting, and for as long as we've had them, are a result of being lost politically, and I don't think that gets spoken about enough. Like, I don't think a lot of Bernie supporters have really had a chance to to reflect on the current cycle.
I think they know that. I think they realize that Bernie lost, but I don't think they know the implications of that for the future.
Right. And I think that there's a lot of people on Twitter that are seeing everything that's happening right now with Trump and COVID and with America, and everyone thinks it's like the fall of the American empire. And it's like that does not mean by any means that you're going to see the end of capitalism. That does not by any means mean that capitalism is approaching its death throes. Like, that's not what it means at all.
As a matter of fact, it's even going to be more solidified because it's like, so everyone will say that, everyone who says that if you don't vote for Trump if you don't vote for Biden in any way, you're voting for Trump. They're never going to take the responsibility of what a Joe Biden presidency would look like. And if you said out loud, well, I'm going to vote for the guy who did the 1994 crime bill. I'm just going to keep on like listing the bills that he's done, like the 1995 omnibus bill. And say I'm willing to vote for that guy, knowing that he may have a second opportunity, and we may have another Donald Trump just to kick the can in the future. I'd be like, fine. You know what? As long as everyone is honest, I think it's the honesty thing that gets me. Is that if you say this out loud and you say that you're still for him, I'll leave you alone.
Nobody owes you their honesty, though. That's the problem.
But they did. But
they don't.
But the thing is that, like, I give you facts, and you still say that this guy's
that's what I'm trying to tell you.
Than the other guy.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. Like, you can't do that. That's not. You can't do that in this landscape right now. You got to think, like, it's not like Trump is some random fucking dude. Like, this is the man who's being like. Think of the things that people say about this man. Oh, he likes to fuck his daughters. Oh,
I mean, that's 100% verifiably true.
But it's all this. It's so many other shit though. Like,
but I don't judge them.
But it's like, you can't have this conversation from a moral standpoint. That's what I'm trying to tell you. There's no point in arguing morality when your opponent is Donald Trump. It's a nowhere argument, and it's kind of like, I mean, that's what I'm trying to say. And I think the constant, incessant need to have this conversation about voting is proof that we are disjointed and proof that we don't know what the fuck we're doing. And that's what I'm trying to say. So it's like, if we're gonna talk about voting, we need to talk about Shahid Buttar. And if we're not going to do that, then let's move on. Let's move on and talk about the next step. What's the next step? Because we have been, like I said before, the Black Lives Matter movement has been pretty successful. There's been instances of direct action that have worked. There's been instances of protests that have worked. I was just part of an effort to stop the industry city rezoning. That shit worked. It's like, great, let's keep that up. Because that's the fight we need to pay attention to. Now, how do we keep that kind of fight going? Like, do we have to continue organizing and building up a true counter hegemonic or a true counterpower? So it's like, you can't just, why even bother with the voting discourse? Why? There's no point.
But you see this, but in abstract, you also see this in the stimulus negotiations where basically, from April, when Nancy Pelosi basically gave Mitch McConnell a blank slate, like, she said, I'm going to defer to you for the CARES Act, and whatever comes out of it, I'll take it as long as you give me the opportunity to pass the HEROES Act. Well, at the time, wasn't they called the HEROES Act? It wasn't even, like, born. So the fact that right now that she's not taking a $1.8 trillion stimulus package from the Republicans shows that, hey, I don't have a constituency that's going to hold me accountable. Like, I'm going to wait till February till Joe Biden's the new president in order to give people a stimulus. And what are you going to do about it? Even my own party members are breaking with me, going on CNN, even on Fox News, pleading to give people money, and she just won't.
And
And if you
she was
just
beefing with Wolf Blitzer today. Did you
and
see that?
yes, of course I saw that. And it's like if we're treating everything like it's not a big deal, especially during a pandemic, then when is it going to be a big deal? Like when are you willing to again
And I think
like
that
unload the
that's
chamber?
no, I agree, but clearly it's not sticking. It's not landing, and we've been trying for 7 months to nail these points home, and it's
No,
not
no,
landing.
not no. I mean, forget about voting. Let's
Oh,
never say for the rest of the episode. Let's don't say voting ever again. But like, what do we do to make them afraid? As Batman said. Actually,
what do we
I'm
do to
gonna
make
note
them
that.
afraid? I mean, that's the thing. Like, we know what to do, but
Yeah,
you can't.
but I mean, are you?
By that I mean voting. Wink, wink.
Yeah,
I'm saying there is, like I've been saying, the 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 American government has been incredibly effective at squashing left movements for the past God knows how long. Voting, there's no point in talking about voting, like we said. So
that's why we stop.
everyone should follow suit because there is no point in talking about it. You cannot give it up. You cannot offer a tangible solution to liberals. You can't. So fucking don't bother. But
I don't think they would accept it even if we did have it. By the way,
precisely. But like we need to find ways to change that. And if we can't push liberals at least a little further to the left, maybe you can push a conservative to the left, who knows? But there are other things that need to be done that can be done to demonstrate an effective kind of counterpower. And
but I think that we have. Well, not us, but I think Bernie Sanders in the last 5 years have like pushed the liberals to the left. It's just
yeah, I
that
think he has too. But what I'm
they'll
trying to say is
never.
my overall point is we're not there yet. We're not there yet to talk to people about this shit. We're not there yet, but we're getting there. My overall point is I'm not pessimistic. I'm not as pessimistic as I'm coming off. At least I hope not. But like we have more work to do is my point. And voting is not, for president at least, that's not where we should focus. We've seen a lot of waves of progressives in different states, and we need to hone in on that. If that's our battle, that's our battle. But like not for presidency, because there's no point.
What about the judiciary, the Supreme Court?
Oh man. Well,
As much as you hate talking about voting, I hate talking about the Supreme Court and
I mean,
this whole fiasco of court packing, not court packing, deserving to know if the constituents in which you're asking to blank for you deserves to know what your feelings about court packing. It's like, and that's the other thing. It gives them this empowerment where there's no accountability or there's no even like show to put on for the contempt that they have for you. Because like whether good or bad, I'm not voting for them, but like I'd like to know as a American citizen whether you plan to court pack the Supreme Court. That'd be like nice information to know. Like, at least give me the decency of like telling me or your feelings about it. But
I think
it becomes like it's so hard. Like it's so hard to swallow the fact that like you empower a person like ACB. I'm not gonna say her full name because what the fuck is it? But when a guy like Tim Kaine, the whom liberals think who should be the rightful vice president of the United States, when he votes for a person like her, and you have people who are going to basically spend the next 2 weeks on the steps of Congress, basically pleading for their I don't want to say maternal rights, but their female rights. It's like a complete waste of it's like a complete waste of time because you're just like in this perpetual hamster wheel of like running. I have to do this. Like it's like giving like crack to like a New York City like rodent. Like if I stop moving, I'll have a heart attack and die.
I really like that analogy.
And that's what, and I think that's what the Democratic Party's like function is to the left. Is like you're supposed to like, even with identity politics and like identitarian politics, as a whole, like not just race but sex, they just keep on doing that. Like, wait a minute, you can't be in favor of this candidate because he did this, and aren't you against that? And it's like, but you hang out with Henry Kissinger, and it's like, it doesn't matter what I do. It's matter about you do, because I have no principles, but the American people don't know that. You have principles, and the American people do know that. So I'm gonna use that against you, and that's the thing that bothers me to no end.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, the Democratic Party kind of holds black women, people of color, gay people, they kind of hold them like politically hostage. And we know that. Whereas the Republicans are just like, man, we don't really fucking care about you. But it is strange because their ability to present themselves as this facade of counter power is like, it's mind numbing. And then for the recent controversy around court packing, like it's done. I'm pretty sure Coney Barrett's getting sworn in. Conservatives now have a majority on the court, which is kind of scary, and it's fucking insane to believe that abortion rights might be taken away. And I mean, Coney Barrett herself is a little fucking cuckoo, but you know.
What's funny about this is that, like, remember the conversation I showed to you on Twitter about how liberals aren't having an uproar about the Democrats fighting to remove them off the ballot. And the guy said, well, they had their day in court, they lost, game over. So it's like your procedural need, like the need to follow procedure is so strong in you that it could disenfranchise you as a whole, because it will come, like, whether it may not be this state or that state, but it will definitely come to you sooner or later. And you just have no, like,
it's also a very weird argument
of like resisting, resisting it. Like,
that's
because, like, I know, like, my politics, like, I know that everything, like, good or bad, I know that it's accidentally good and it's purposely bad.
Yeah.
And that's how I view, like, American law and politics as a whole.
Yeah.
So to have this, like, yo, I'm gonna follow the rules and the rules will, like, save me, because, like, I know, because we all know that Hitler and Mussolini, those guys they drew outside of the lines all the time. like how do you exactly how do you think they got into power?
Right. Yeah.
Like they manipulated the rules to favor them and only them, and hence why, hey, you know, like, it was literally in German law that the Jewish people had to, like, give up their land and actually move to little ghettos and to Auschwitz. Like, it wasn't like, no, yo, we're gonna just strong arm them, and then, like, because I'm pretty sure that the German people, even like the most liberal of them, would be like, wait a minute, you can't do that. And the fact that most of the German society didn't say that shows that, hey, I'm a good German citizen, and I just follow the rules, and I just, like, I'm just gonna whistle through this graveyard.
Yeah. Yeah, it's they view it that way because the Green Party is the quote unquote bad guy. And in their head, them losing this court battle is a victory for, if voting for Green means a vote for Donald Trump, then them losing in court means Trump loses in court, which is, obviously, I don't have to tell you how fucking stupid that is, but people don't see it that way. And it's this court packing shit. I feel like this is just proof that we really need to just abolish the Supreme Court.
I mean, I mean, at the very least, democratize it before. Like, I like to see it democratized before it's abolished. But if it if it if it's like the quote unquote democracy that we have with our like elected officials, then yeah, abolish it. Then I'd be like on board with you.
There's also the weird thing that I find with, following the rules and shit. Like, I don't really know if this is connected. I don't really know the rules of a Senate hearing. I don't know what they're supposed to do. I don't know, but they didn't really she didn't really have to give any straight answers to anything. And I think that that's a little strange too. Like,
But it's become a show procedure. Like no one really. I mean, after what Joe Biden did to Anita Hill, you really expect these people to be like contrite and like honest? Like that's the other thing about liberals that I don't get is that you've seen all this history. You don't think that like I don't know who they consider evil, but okay, the Republicans. You don't think that they're going to like metamorphosize into something different the next time you have to go against them? Like it's like I think I was speaking to you about this with Nandy. Like they did not want the civil rights movement to happen. Everything since the civil rights movement has been a reaction in a way from that. So whether that's whether a corporation saying that Black Lives Matter, like showcasing that on their platform, doesn't really mean anything. Because when you're attacking Christian Smalls, a black male, just for unionizing in unionizing for protective equipment in the middle of a pandemic, that BLM on the side of my fire stick doesn't mean anything. So if you keep on saying, if you keep us quote unquote content with the symbolic gestures, nothing's truly happened. And think about it. Well, nothing happens for the better. Nothing happens for the good anymore. Just it only stays the same or gets worse.
that's fucking bars. It's true. It's true. I don't think that a lot of people realize that, though. I think a lot of people are caught up in the cult of personality. I mean, like, my take on it is kind of reductive and oversimplified, but I still think it's true. Like, I think liberals are very caught up in the cult of personality, and I think identity politics for them is a fun blanket to kind of put on and take off whenever they so feel fit. And that's why I think a lot of them got excited for Kamala Harris, because it's the black VP that they can cosplay as, and whatever. But like, they don't really know.
How can we be racist? We support Kamala Harris. I mean,
it's not even that. It's the idea that she's gonna be what they want her to be because she's the first black VP. And we fell into that trap with Obama too, but people don't really realize that.
They think that because like, well, Kamala Harris is she's the like median version of a black female, which is like she knows the crucibles of being a black female in the United States, and it's like, no, she doesn't. Both her parents were professors at Berkeley. That's a pretty distinguished school. Like, she grew up rich. So it's like the idea that she's part of the common black woman experience is like you're wish casting that onto her so you could feel better about the other black women who don't get healthcare, who don't get jobs, who don't get like.
So you can sit here and
afforded to Kamala Harris.
So you can sit here and make fun of Briahna Joy Gray for working for the old white man Bernie. It's a lot of like backwards, weird ass racism that doesn't make any fucking sense when it comes down to it. But liberals have been much like the right wing. Liberals have been whipped up into a frenzy too. I mean, it's the truth, and it's scary, and but it's true.
As a fellow Patreon like member, or a person who does have a Patreon, just because like she's very popular on her Patreon, and like she and Virgil Texas on Chapel and the Bernie podcast. Just because they have like a lot of members and success doesn't mean it should like it goes against their leftist like ideals. I don't get like how she can make $250,000 or $25 million. It doesn't change like the core of what she's saying.
If anything, it's in line with leftist principles.
Because think about it, I'm not going to say that if like Rachel Maddow gets like about what 700,000 viewers per night. I'm not going to say wow she doesn't deserve like the $8 million that she gets. Like even though I don't agree with the politics that she's pushing, I recognize that how popular she is and how well she does her job. So like, why would you? I hate when leftists, especially, say that like, "Hey, you're a grifter," even though I call a lot of leftist grifters, but like,
I've been called
you're a grifter because. But I only call you a grifter if you go from like a leftist medium where you didn't need any backing, any corporate backing, and then you just all of a sudden sign on to like MSNBC. That's just weird, especially when like MSNBC used to be owned by General Electric, and I'm pretty sure they still have some influence over it, directly or indirectly. And I'm pretty sure they don't want your ideas there.
That's the other thing too. A lot of people were coming forward.
If they did, there's something wrong with your ideas. Sorry. Precisely. A lot of people were coming forward and like pissing on both of them for being like podcasters and like accusing them of grifting, accusing them of all this shit. Briahna Joy Gray, I think they said something. She mentioned her apartment, and people were like, "You make $25K a month, whatever, just from your Patreon alone." Blah 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 blah. And it's just like, I don't understand why people attack leftist podcasters, because it's like, do you think that these people would turn down 7-figure contracts? Do you think these like? Are you fucking kidding me? They will never get that though. Like, that's just the reality. You're not going to see fucking Chapo Trap House on like MSNBC. It's not going to happen. Mehdi Hassan sold out to MSNBC. This guy's naming names.
But it's like he's a prime example because he used to interview very powerful people and challenge them. He sold out to MSNBC, and now he's part of that like Yas Queen Girl Club bullshit.
That was on BBC and Algeria, which are still problematic networks.
Al Jazeera?
To be on.
You mean?
Yeah.
Got you.
Al Jazeera and BBC, yeah.
But I remember Mehdi Hassan saying a lot of like leftist shit, and now he's not so much. And that's whatever. That's do him. Like you do you. But
no,
like,
I mean he's an anarcho-communist, and whatever, and you can't say anything different.
Yeah, whatever. But
we don't believe you need more people.
My point is, it's independent media that's being funded by fans, and the money is voluntarily given. It's not like it's required. A lot of their content is paywall locked, but like who knows, that might change. But it's like it kind of exhibits that same classist liberalism or classist bullshit that liberals subscribe to, because Matty Iglesias wrote a book called 1 Billion Americans, quite possibly the stupidest fucking idea I've heard in my lifetime. And it's not really, it doesn't really get that kind of coverage. But
well, you insist on not making 4 kids?
No, but he referred to the
economy.
He referred to the podcast. He referred to Briahna and Virgil as dead end Bernie supporters, something like that, Bernie dead enders. And it's like this perfectly demonstrates exactly how classist liberals are, because there's no, even if you put forth really good ideas, because you're not sponsored by a big corporate conglomerate, you are still a failure. Because you're doing this in your basement or in your living room or whatever, because you're getting funded by fans, or you're quote unquote asking your fans for money, you're never going to be seen as doing anything good, because because it doesn't look good on a resume. And it's like that same that presents itself in really ugly ways too, with the way that they elect politicians and the way that they support
Credentialism.
policies. Like, it's fun to what is the basis of liberalism at this point?
Uh,
Classism? Like,
and
what is it?
anti-Trump, believing the CIA and FBI.
And if you can't support independent media,
Maduro's
if
a
you can't,
dictator.
I don't understand how you can't, you know, you can critique
Medicare
it.
for all is gaslighting people. He's
You can,
gaslighting the ACA. There we go.
it's
That's
fine.
that's the only.
It's just like there's all these critiques of independent media and leftist policies, and that's fine. But it's like this doesn't equate to being failures. I don't understand how Virgil, Texas is a failure. I don't understand how Briahna Gray is a failure.
No, you're because they don't toe the Democratic Party line. I mean, I mean, do you really expect Matt Iglesias to really have like a profound critique of the Democratic Party with his
No, but
$1.2 million
think that
home?
No, I don't. But that's the trickle down effect, right? Like, there are so many people that now have that mentality. I've been called a grifter by fucking liberals. Our Patreon has like 5 subscribers. What the fuck? We don't even have locked content. It's like, and it's just I've been called a grifter because I have a podcast. What the fuck?
Oh yeah,
It's
I
stupid.
mean, this again, this insane like need for like credentialism really shows how like limited and how much contempt they have for actual like labor, one, and
Yeah.
how the contempt that they showed for Bernie Sanders. Oh, you went to Brooklyn College / University of Chicago. Oh, cool. We went to Harvard and I went to Yale. So,
Oh, you made independent film. You're a fucking loser. You didn't do anything with your life. And I took offense to that shit because it's like, yo, I'm busting my ass for this show.
they have.
You too. Like, we both bust our ass for this fucking show. The fuck?
And I say that lost because everything like we hope, even from like the quote unquote, it's that window, Overton window.
Yeah.
I think the contempt for like the fellow working class has like risen in the last 5 years, and that's not even and that is funny enough has nothing to do with Trump. Like,
I agree 100%.
That's crazy.
I think it has to do with the gig economy, but I think that we should talk about that on another episode though.
I think it does, but I think that with the fervor of like actually, as you say, that the whole every liberal has their own personal icon. I think that any threat to them, they internalize that too. So if you say that,